it should come as no surprise to anybody that Debbie Wasserman Schultz is the representative that attempted to spearhead this effort. Upscale Florida town and fight over immigrant prison. In one of Florida's rural enclaves where peacocks roam and horses' trails are as common as sidewalks, town leaders decided to bring in as much of their money from an unusual business, a prison. So you can imagine how crazy that is. And in one of South Florida's rural enclaves, only the leaders of Southwest ranches kept their plans quiet from residents for almost a decade. And the project has now ballooned. It has become even worse as a result today, but back then it was believed that this would be among the federal government's largest immigrant detention centers. The town would have to pay $150,000 each year to keep the prison, but officials say the town would turn a profit. The audacity of for-profit prisons is incredible. By getting 4% of what U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, pays the company operating the prison to hold inmates there. Now, you want to talk about the inhumanity that exists right off the bat? Many residents finally caught wind of this idea this year. Keep in mind, this is 2011. When the immigration agency announced the tentative deal, and they're angry. They held protests at public meetings, contemplated whether to recall the mayor before his March election, and whether to amend the town charter to make it easier for the city make it easier to fire the city attorney pushing the deal. The objection over the prison has created an odd set of allies among the town's affluent residents, many of whom are wary of illegal immigrants, of course, and longtime activists who fight for immigrants, legal or not. The proposed facility is part of the federal government's new plan to move immigrants from jails to detention centers. It says are better for holding people with no criminal background. The centers are also supposed to be easier to reach for detainees, relatives, and lawyers. So we can keep going on, but the point is, if you scroll down, Colin, you will see, as you guys will see, that this is a plan. And yes, that's just a site for, it's a horse community. It's an equestrian community, is primarily what Southwest Ranches is, which is very close to where this detention center is being, the Alligator Alcatraz being set today. So what I would say, and this is not really a selling point, in the latest version of the deal back then called for some 1,500 beds. Southwest Ranches could earn more than $1.5 million annually if ICE keeps the center filled year-round. So again, Jen, if you can talk about just what the whole inhumane concept of whether you agree with illegal immigration or not, or how it should be dealt with. If you could just address the whole concept of for-profit prisons and how absolutely insane and inhumane the concept actually is, that would be great.
Okay, well, that's true, but I'm just, let me put it out there. I'm against the whole concept of prisons the way we have them, private, public, or otherwise in this country to begin with. But yeah, the idea that there's a profit motive to incarcerate people is really just unacceptable. It's just unacceptable. The fact that the very people that literally profit off of it, people like my congresswoman, that those are the people that get to determine how many of them to build while they're profiting off of them is just, it's mind-blowing, really. And so I just found it very interesting that over the past couple of months, like since May, so like past month or so, my congresswoman has been seemingly such a fierce advocate against the ICE detention facilities and their inhumane treatment of people. And I find that very interesting. Is it because you don't stand to profit off of this particular facility? Is it because it's Donald Trump and not Joe Biden there? Make no mistake, things like this don't happen overnight. They don't happen overnight. This is something that obviously had been thought about, potentially created. The amount of research that goes into these types of facilities, it's more than a couple of months. That's a big thing. So logistically, it's a big thing. So, so does she care because it's Trump? Does she care because she has nothing else of substance to talk about? I don't know. But the hypocrisy of her being somehow leading the charge against inhumane detention is off the wall. Debbie, you are such a lying sack of, yeah, just so ridiculous. Oh,
Colin,
like you really care about those detainees, right? Like you care about the Palestinian detainees that are held by the IOF. Yeah, you care so much about detainees.
and don't forget, the second you turn it into a for-profit concept, there's an obligation or an encouragement to put people in prison in many
Yes.
cases for reasons that are not warranted for them to be there.
This is exactly what's happening with Stephen Miller right now. This is exactly what's happening with Stephen Miller right now. Somebody put it in the chat. I forget the name of whatever it is that he's invested in that's linked to the ICE detentions and the contractors and the different, like he is literally profiting per head and telling how many people he wants arrested. And yet we know that he's profiting from it. And this is like just normal now.
Scroll down, Colin, please. And so what you'll see here, guys, is keep going. I'll tell you when to stop. Let's see. All right. A little more. Okay, there we are.
Oh, wait, I see my former law firm associate commenting here.
Scroll up a little bit, Colin, please.
Of course, it has to involve a Polyakov.
Okay. I have been fully advised by our DC contacts that we should remain fully quiet on this one and to let our DC leaders help without sparking a fire that will make it more difficult for them to assist, wrote Polyakov. Jen?
Well, I don't know. I'm assuming that it's
Hager and
this was
Polyakov.
a while ago, so it had to be, it's probably still Keith. But yeah, Keith or Gary Polyakov. Continue.
Also a partner in one of the state's most powerful lobbying firms. Becker and Polyakov have been huge supporters of Debbie Wasserman Schultz ever since she entered politics.
Yeah.
And unfortunately has the distinction of having worked at that law firm at one time.
I did work for Becker and Polyakov. I had a good time there. I didn't have a personal issue there. I didn't have any problems with anything there, but I had a very unique situation there.
Hey, listen, you know what? A lot of it's like Israel. You know, a lot of things are like dangling under the surface before they eventually erupt to the surface. And then you get to see people for who they really are. And had a circumstance like that been going on, who knows if you would have tolerated any of that nonsense at the time, things change. So with that said, top Florida lawmakers in D.C., like DWS, the Democratic National Committee chairwoman, and U.S. Senator Bill Nelson, have written letters to ICE in support of the detention center.
There it is. And there it is.
The DWS in recent weeks has encouraged more communication with the residents. According to Town and CCAA emails, Republican U.S. Senator Marco Rubio, it goes to show you how much these guys really are in it for life.
It doesn't matter what party. They're all in it together. Mm-hmm. So now she has a problem with ICE, but then she was in favor of ICE. Didn't she also recently vote to support them? Didn't she recently just promote or vote for that, whatever resolution was? What was that resolution they just had, like honoring ICE or whatever, standing in support with ICE? Like,
yes, there was like an ICE acknowledgement bill of some kind. And
yes,
Debbie
just a couple weeks ago. She just voted for that. And yet she's leading the charge against ICE detention centers.
Well, it's like the time
bitch.
well, it's like the time that I went to. Well, it's like the time that I went to one of her town halls at the Broward DEC, and the way that she took, first of all, when you're talking to a room full of very old Democrats, they don't know any better. They don't want to know any better. They know they've got one foot in the grave and they just have accepted that this is the way it is. And Debbie's talking about, oh, we have this little amendment we're adding to Medicare called Seniors Have Eyes. And I'm thinking, this is...
Seniors Have Eyes. That's her big contribution to policy. Seniors have eyes.
Rather than saying, I support a single-payer healthcare system.
Never going to happen.
And you know who would benefit the most, honestly, from a single-payer healthcare system? Seniors.
Everyone.
Seniors in particular. Like, they wouldn't have to worry about Medicare Part A or Part B, or Part D. All of that's bullshit.
Well, no, it's very profitable. It's very profitable.
Well, exactly. But that's the point. So she preys on the ill-informed and the underinformed and the misinformed.
Well, yes, she preys on the vulnerable, whether it's elderly people, whether it's people that have to rely on things like payday loans. She will find a way not just to prey on them, but profit off of it. every single time. Every one of these groups is a group that not only has she worked against, stood next to, but worked against, but also then profited off of the detriment to those people. It's
No,
really disgusting.
well, she is a pretty disgusting person.
Oh, yeah.
While neighboring officials from Pembroke Pines have publicly expressed outrage over the secretive process while quietly signing deals with the town, not only promising not to interfere, but also to provide water service and fire protection. Residents say they are waiting to see the final deal. They have successfully fought off far smaller development efforts, including plans for street lamps and a toddler playground. Well, that shows you what the real priorities are. But what this says more than anything else is that when people have money and power and ways and means, they prevent things like this from happening. In a lot of these communities, especially in very disadvantaged parts of Miami, and believe me, Miami is the most inequitable city in the entire nation. So when you talk about people that have it and the people that don't have it, the people who don't have it really don't have it. Like they have nothing.
Well, and even more so as to where this Alligator Alcatraz is. It isn't just preying upon vulnerable people. It's preying upon our most vulnerable people, right? So that's on tribal land. It's off of Big Cypress.
Yeah.
It affects both Miccosukee and Seminole tribes. And, you know, normally you guys know, I don't generally say we would take up a collection for the Seminoles. They're extremely well funded, the ones down here. However, Miccosukee, not the case. And just in general, this is something that is just it's just a bad plan. It's a bad plan for the ecosystem. It's a bad plan for everybody except for people that profit off of detaining people.